I buried my husband on Monday. Tuesday morning, I learned he'd buried me first. Look, I know how that sounds. Dramatic. Like something from one of those dime novels the mercantile sells to ranch wives who dream of lives more interesting than their own. But I'm telling you seriously, this is exactly how it happened. I walked into the land office Tuesday morning, still wearing my morning dress. You know, because, well, because that's what you do. The fabric was already dusty from the grave I dug myself the day before. My hands, God. My hands were still raw from the shovel handle. I could feel every blister as I held those papers. The clerk barely looked up. This thin man with ink stains on his fingers and this smirk. I'll never forget that smirk. I'm here to file the homestead claim, I said, kept my voice steady. In my name, Margaret Hayes. He took the papers, glanced at them. Then he actually laughed. This little huffing sound that made me want to, Mrs. Hayes, he said, leaning back in his chair like he had all the time in the world. Your husband mortgaged this land 6 months ago, took out loans against the claim, everything. I stood there. The dust motes were hanging in the sunlight coming through the window. And I remember thinking, stupidly, that they looked like the dust still on my dress. The dust from his grave. That's not possible, I said. Should have had him file properly. Ma'am. He slid the papers back across the desk. Nothing I can do for you now. Nothing. He could do nothing. 2 years. 2 years I'd worked that land. Dug every post hole while my husband slept off whiskey. Mended every fence while he promised he'd do it tomorrow. Birthed every calf. Hauled every bucket of water. Survived every winter. Me, my hands, my back, my will. And this clerk, this man who'd never touched prairie dirt in his life, was telling me it was all gone. I opened my mouth. Honestly, I don't know what I was going to say. Something sharp. Something that would make him understand the claim wasn't filed because he was fraudulent. The voice came from behind me. Deep, calm. I turned. Jacob Stone stood in the doorway. My neighboring rancher. The man who'd brought soup during my husband's final days. Who'd stood at the funeral at a respectful distance. Said nothing. Offered no empty condolences that would have meant nothing anyway. Mrs. Hayes worked that land, Jacob continued, walking forward. Everyone in this territory knows it. Her husband was a drunk who let her do everything while he mortgaged her future for whiskey money. The clerk's smirk faded, just a little. I'll buy the fraudulent claim, Jacob said. Pay his debts. Ensure Mrs. Hayes keeps working the land she built. I couldn't breathe. I mean, literally. The air felt too thick to pull into my lungs. Mr. Stone, I managed. I don't need. The land office closes at 4, he said to the clerk, ignoring me completely. Draw up the papers. I'll be back with a bank draft. He walked out, just like that. I stood there another moment, feeling stupid, feeling angry, feeling, I don't know, something I couldn't name. Then I followed him outside. The street was dusty. It was always dusty. But that day, it felt like the whole world was coated in it. Like I was coated in it. Like I'd never be clean again. Mr. Stone, I called. He stopped, turned, waited. I walked up to him, and I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, in my temples, in my raw, blistered hands. I don't need charity, I said. His jaw tightened. Those blue eyes, God. They were direct, uncomfortable in how direct they were. It's not charity, he said quietly. I've watched you for 2 years. Margaret?
You're the finest rancher in this territory. I'm offering employment and partnership. Work my land with yours. Split profits equally. If it works, maybe we discuss making it permanent? You mean marriage? I asked, bluntly, because I was done with men who didn't say what they meant. I mean, he said carefully, I've admired you since the day you dug post holes while he slept off whiskey. You deserve a real partner. Let me prove I can be that. He tipped his hat, walked away, and I stood there in the dust, watching him go, thinking one thing, the finest rancher in this territory. No one had ever called me that. Not even me. I rode home through the dust. The sun was high and hot. And my mare, Rosie, I called her knew the way without guidance, which was good. Because I wasn't really there, in my head. I mean, I was somewhere else. 2 years ago. Summer. The kind of heat that makes you stupid. I'd been digging post holes. My husband was supposed to help. He'd promised the night before. Actually sounded sincere for once, but when morning came, he was still in bed, sleeping off the whiskey from the saloon. Again. So I dug them myself. The ground was hard, packed clay and rock that fought every strike of the post hole digger. My hands blistered within the first hour. By noon, they were bleeding. But I kept going because the fence needed fixing. And if I didn't do it, it wouldn't get done. I remember glancing up at one point, wiping sweat from my eyes, and seeing movement across the property line. Jacob Stone. He was working his own land, repairing his own fence, and he was watching me, not staring, not gawking, just observing, like he was taking note of something important. I looked away, went back to digging. That was the thing about those 2 years. I'd gotten so good at pretending everything was fine. I'd perfected the art of looking like I didn't need help, like I chose this, like it was all part of some plan I'd made instead of just survival. The day my husband took sick, really sick. Not just hungover, Jacob appeared at the door with medicine. Tincture from the doctor. Wrapped in brown paper. Heard Thomas was unwell, was all he said. I took the medicine, thanked him. Didn't mention that Thomas smelled like a distillery, that the sickness was probably his liver finally giving up after years of abuse. Jacob nodded. Left. Didn't say anything about the state of the house, the dishes I hadn't washed. The exhaustion I know must have shown on my face. At the funeral, God,
Was that really just 2 days ago he stood at the back? Respectful distance. No empty words about being in a better place or the Lord's plan. Just presence. Quiet presence. I reached my homestead. It's not much. Cabin. Barn. Small corral. But I'd built most of it myself. Fixed what my husband broke. Maintained what he neglected. I unsaddled Rosie. Put her in the corral. Walked into the cabin. One plate on the table. One cup. One chair pulled out. The silence was deafening. You know how they say absence makes the heart grow fonder? That's a lie. Sometimes absence just shows you what was really there all along. Nothing. My husband had been nothing. A body taking up space. A voice making promises. A presence that was somehow lonelier than solitude. I sat down, poured myself coffee from the pot I'd made that morning. It was cold now. Bitter. I drank it anyway. I'd been alone married. Maybe being alone unmarried wouldn't be worse. Jacob showed up the next morning. I heard hoofbeats. Looked out the window, and there he was, riding up to my cabin like he had every right to be there. Which, I guess after buying my fraudulent land claim. Maybe he did. I met him on the porch. "Mr. Stone," I said. Formal, guarded. "Mrs. Hayes." He dismounted, pulled a sheaf of papers from his saddlebag. "May I come in?" I should have said no. Should have told him to conduct whatever business this was outside. But something in his tone, respectful, not presumptuous, made me step aside. "Coffee?" I asked. Automatic. The way women are taught to offer hospitality even when we're not sure we want company. "Please." I made it. Fresh pot. While it brewed, he sat at my table, spread out the papers, didn't touch anything else. Didn't look around like he was cataloging my poverty. I poured 2 cups, sat across from him. "I want to be clear about what I'm proposing," he said. No preamble. Direct. "I'll hold legal title to your land, keeps the creditors from seizing it, but you manage it, your cattle, your decisions, your work. We share equipment during peak seasons. Labor too. When needed. Profits split equally. 50-50. I stared at him. "Why?" "Because you've earned it." "That's not an answer." He took a breath. "Margaret. I can call you Margaret." I nodded, barely. "You're the best rancher I've ever seen, man or woman. You've kept that land productive with no help, no resources, and a drunk actively working against you. I have resources, land, equipment, but I'm one man trying to work 2 sections by myself. This benefits both of us." It sounded reasonable. Too reasonable. "And if it works," I asked, "after a year, what then?" "Then we discuss making it permanent." "You mean marriage?" I said, bluntly, because I was done dancing around words. He didn't flinch. "I've admired you since the day you dug post holes while he slept off whiskey. You deserve a real partner. Not a drunk. Not a charity case keeper. A real partner. Let me prove I can be that." I looked at the papers, at my coffee, at my hands still blistered, still raw. I want separate accounts, I said. Agreed. Separate quarters. I'm not. This isn't about me moving into your house or you moving into mine. Understood. And I make my own decisions about my land. You don't override me because you're the man or because your name's on some legal document. Margaret, he leaned forward. I'm not proposing ownership of you. I'm proposing partnership. Equals. If you make a decision I disagree with, we talk about it. Like partners. Not like husband and wife where the husband has final say. Like equals. I met his eyes. Really looked at him. He meant it. I could see it in the set of his jaw, the steadiness of his gaze. Fine, I said. We try it. I held out my hand. He took it. His palm was as calloused as mine, work-worn, a rancher's hand, not a gentleman's. We start Monday, I said. We started Tuesday. He corrected, gentle, almost smiling. At the land office. He was right. We'd already started, and for the first time in years. I felt something that might have been hope. The first month was, honestly, it was strange. Good strange, but strange. Jacob showed up at dawn that first Monday. We were fixing the fence line between our properties well, I guess it was all his property now on paper. But you know what I mean. Where do you want the posts? He asked. I blinked. What? The posts. Where do you usually place them? I stared at him. My husband had never asked where I wanted anything. He'd told me where things should go, then gone to the saloon while I did the actual work. Every 8 feet, I said. Gives better stability in wind. Jacob nodded, started measuring, followed my spacing exactly. No argument, no, well, actually, no mansplaining about proper fence construction. Just listening and doing. We worked in silence mostly, comfortable silence, which was weird in itself. I was used to silence being heavy, loaded with resentment or judgment, or just emptiness. This silence was different. It was the silence of two people working together, the rhythm of shared labor. His hammer strikes alternating with mine, the sound of posts sinking into earth. At noon, we stopped for water, sat in the shade of my barn. You changed your water rotation, he said. Not a question, an observation. Last week, I confirmed. Moved the cattle to the South Creek early. North pasture was getting overgrazed. He nodded. Smarter than my way. I'm moving mine to match. I didn't know what to say to that. A man admitting my way was better. Changing his own practice to align with mine. Revolutionary. Over the next weeks, a pattern emerged. We'd work together on the big tasks, fence repairs, moving cattle, barn maintenance. He'd ask my opinion. I'd give it. He'd listen. Sometimes he'd offer a different perspective. But never as if his way was the only way. Just another option to consider. Like equals. One afternoon, we were at the general store, ordering feed for winter. Mrs.
Hayes, the merchant said. How many bags? I opened my mouth to answer. Actually, Jacob said. Margaret knows the herd count better than I do. She'll make the call. The merchant looked between us, adjusted his glasses, wrote down the number I gave him. No question. No confirmation needed from the man. Just my word. Trusted. We took to sharing meals. Not romantic dinners. Just practical food at the end of long days. Sometimes at his cabin, sometimes at mine. We'd cook in shifts, clean up together, talk about the work, the weather, the cattle, normal things, easy things. One evening, we sat on my porch, separate chairs, proper distance. The sun was setting, painting everything gold. You were right about the south pasture, he said. Quiet. I looked over at him. I thought it was too rocky for good grazing, he continued. But the cattle are thriving there, better than my north section. The rocks provide minerals, I said. They lick them. Old trick my father taught me. Smart man. He taught me ranching, taught me. I trailed off, thinking about what my father had taught me, that I was capable, that I was strong, that I could do this work. Then I'd married a man who'd taught me the opposite. Margaret. I blinked. Sorry, just thinking. About, should I tell him, this man who'd shown me more respect in a month than my husband had in years? I can't remember the last time someone told me I was right about anything. I said, honest, raw. Can't remember if anyone ever did. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm telling you now, you're right about most things. The water rotation, the pasture management, the cattle handling. You're remarkable at this. Remarkable. I turned the word over in my mind, tested it, tried it on. It fit better than I expected. The dust storm came out of nowhere. Well, no, that's not true. There were signs the sky turning that particular shade of sickly yellow, the way the birds went quiet, the cattle getting restless. But out here, you learn to work through warnings. You don't have the luxury of stopping every time nature threatens. We were moving cattle to the north pasture when it hit. 1 minute, the sky was just tense. The next, the world turned brown. Get them to the barn, Jacob shouted. But I could barely hear him over the wind. Dust everywhere. In my eyes. My mouth. My lungs. The cattle were panicking. Scattering. If we lost them in this, they could run for miles. Get lost. Die. I couldn't see 3 feet ahead. Margaret, Jacob's voice. Somewhere in the storm. Here, follow my voice. And here's the thing I still think about he did. He didn't question, didn't argue, didn't insist on taking the lead because he was the man. He just trusted. Followed my calls, moved where I directed. We worked blind,
working by instinct and sound and faith, my voice calling directions. His presence solid beside me, even when I couldn't see him. The cattle slowly, painfully, herding toward shelter. Hours. It felt like hours. Finally, we got the last of them into the barn. Shut the doors against the screaming wind. We collapsed against the wall, both of us coated in dust, coughing, gasping, and I started laughing. I don't know why. Hysteria? Maybe? Or relief? Or just the absurdity of it all. Surviving a dust storm 2 weeks after burying a husband who'd mortgaged my life away. But the laughter turned into something else. Crying. All the tears I hadn't cried at the funeral. All the grief I'd shoved down. All the rage and exhaustion and loneliness of 2 years married to a man who'd left me more alone than solitude ever could. I cried, and Jacob God. Jacob just sat beside me, close but not touching, steady, present. You held that herd together, he said quietly. When I finally got control of my breathing. I've seen men lose cattle in less. I'm so tired, I whispered. Not about the storm, about everything. So tired of performing. Strength, capability, like I have it all figured out. Like I'm not terrified every single day that I'll fail. That it'll all fall apart. That everyone will see I'm just pretending to be as strong as they think I am. Silence. Dust settling around us. Then, I know. I looked at him. What? I've been watching. Remember? His voice was gentle. You're allowed to be tired. Margaret, allowed to be scared. Doesn't make the strength less real. I stared at our hands, both covered in the same dust, same cracks in the calloused skin, same evidence of the same work. Equal. We sat in the dust-thick silence, and for the first time in 2 years, maybe in my whole life, I let myself be seen, not performing, not pretending, just myself. Tired, scared, real, and he didn't flinch. Sunday morning, church bells. I sat alone in the back pew, like always. But I could feel the stares, the whispers that stopped when I got too close. The judgment radiating from every properly married woman in that building. Margaret Hayes, widow, working with the bachelor rancher. The math was simple in small minds. After service, I went to the general store, needed flour, sugar, basic supplies. The women inside went quiet when I entered. That particular kind of quiet that's louder than shouting. I ignored them, gathered what I needed, took it to the counter. Mrs. Patterson was there, merchant's wife, pillar of the community. She looked at me like I was something tracked in on someone's boot. Mrs. Hayes, she said, cold, proper. I hear you're working with Mr. Stone now? I am, I said, level, giving her nothing. Must be convenient for you both. The implication hung in the air like smoke. I could have explained, could have defended myself, told her about the partnership agreement, the separate quarters, the purely business nature of the arrangement. But I'd spent 2 years explaining, defending, making excuses for my husband's drinking, for my marriage, for my life. I was done. Very convenient, I said. Met her eyes. Didn't look away. We're quite productive together. Her face pinched like she'd bitten into something sour. I paid, left, didn't look back. That evening, Jacob rode over, tense, angry in a way I hadn't seen before. "The men at the saloon are talking," he said. No preamble. Let them talk. "Margaret, they're questioning my intentions. Your reputation." My reputation. I almost laughed. They pitied me when Thomas drank. Now they scandalize me when I work honestly. The judgment never stops. Jacob, I'm done caring what they think. I could confront them, make them understand. "No," I said. Sharp. "I don't need you defending my honor. I don't need you explaining our arrangement to men whose opinions I don't value. I just need you to keep being who you've been. A partner. Equal. That's all." He studied me. "Do you trust me?" The question caught me off guard. Did I don't know, I said. Honest. I trusted once. It nearly killed me. He nodded. Slow, like he was absorbing that. Then let me earn it. No rush, no pressure. Just let me earn it. He rode away, and I stood there thinking trust isn't the real question. The question is whether I can trust myself to choose differently this time, to see the difference between a man who demands I carry him and a man who offers to carry alongside me. 3 a.m. Couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to the house settle, the tick of the clock, the sound of my own breathing. And I remembered all the lies I'd told myself. He's just tired. It's the heat. He'll do it tomorrow. Everything's fine. 2 years of lying, to neighbors who asked if I needed help, to the preacher who suggested marriage counseling, to my own reflection in the mirror every morning. Everything's fine. The biggest lie that I had no choice, that I had to stay, that leaving would make me weak. When the truth was, I'd been terrified, not of being alone, of choosing wrong again, of trusting again, of believing in partnership again, only to find myself carrying everything alone. Again. I got up, made coffee in the dark, sat at the table. I could leave. Right now. Sell everything to Jacob, he'd buy it. Probably give me a fair price out of misplaced nobility. I could take that money and go somewhere new. Start over. Alone. Safe. Alone, but safe. The thought was tempting. Clean break. No risk. No vulnerability. No chance of waking up 5 years from now and realizing I'd made the same mistake twice. But then I thought about the fence line, Jacob asking where I wanted the posts, the merchant deferring to my judgment, Jacob's silence in the dust storm, knowing when not to speak, when presence mattered more than words. You were right about the south pasture. His hands, as work-worn as mine, there was a difference. Wasn't there? Between my husband and Jacob, my husband had demanded I carry him, his drinking, his debts, his responsibilities, expected me to be strong enough for both of us, while resenting me for it. Jacob offered to carry alongside me. Partnership. Real partnership. The question wasn't whether I could trust him. It was whether I could trust myself to see the difference, to choose differently, to believe that accepting help from an equal wasn't weakness. Dawn came slowly, pink light creeping through the window. I'd decided something in those dark hours, something that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. I choose this, not because I need rescue, not because I'm afraid of being alone, because I choose partnership, real partnership, with a man who's earned it. I choose him, and maybe for the first time in my life, I choose myself. Jacob showed up at dawn, like usual, but I was waiting on the porch. "We need to talk," I said, before he could dismount, before I could lose my nerve. He went still. "All right. About what this is, what we're doing." He dismounted, slow, careful, like approaching a spooked horse. I took a breath. "The town thinks I'm weak," I said, "trading one man's protection for another's. They think I need you, that this partnership is just charity dressed up in legal papers." "Margaret, they're wrong," I interrupted. "But I need to know you understand why they're wrong. I need to know you see the difference." He waited, listening. "I'm not choosing to work with you because I need you," I said, each word deliberate, clear. "I'm choosing to work with you, not for you, not because of you, with you, as an equal, as a partner who brings as much to this as you do." "I've never seen you as anything but your own woman," he said quietly. "Then here's what I'm choosing." I stepped forward, met his eyes. "Equal partnership, in the land, in the work, in whatever this becomes. But when the year's up, I file my own claim. My name on the deed, too. Not your wife, your partner." Understanding flickered across his face. "You're not accepting rescue," he said. "You're negotiating terms. Yes. You're claiming agency in the partnership, not surrendering to it." "Yes." He smiled, small, real. "The land will know the difference, even if the filing doesn't." And oh, that hit me, because it echoed my own thought from weeks ago, like he'd been inside my head, like he understood. "Equal partnership," he said. "Your name on the deed, your voice in decisions, our work, our land." I held out my hand. This time, I initiated it. He took my hand, calloused palm against calloused palm, equal grip, equal commitment. "And if partnership becomes more?" he asked, careful, not assuming. I didn't look away. "Then I'll choose that too, when I'm ready, because I want to, not because I need to, not because the town expects it, because I choose it. Choose you." "I can wait. I know you can. That's why That's why I'm choosing this. We stood there, hands clasped, the morning light turning everything golden. And I realized this is what freedom feels like. Not being alone, being able to choose not to be, on my terms, as my whole self, not performing, not pretending, just choosing. We started work, side by side, like always. But everything had shifted. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was living. 6 months later, spring came to the territory the way it always did, slow. Grudging, like it wasn't sure it was welcome. But it came. Jacob and I were planting the garden. Our garden. I guess, though we still maintained separate quarters. Separate accounts. Still partners on paper and in practice. But something had softened, warmed, like the land. "Hand me the bean seeds," I asked. He did. Our fingers brushed. Casual, easy. 6 months ago, I would have flinched, pulled back, guarded. Now I just smiled. The land was thriving. Our methods, combined my knowledge of the territory with his resources, had created something better than either of us could have managed alone. The cattle were fat and healthy. The profits were good, real good. We'd paid off every debt my husband had left, filed the new claim, both our names on it, Margaret Hayes and Jacob Stone, partners. The town had, well, they hadn't exactly embraced us, but the whispers had quieted, mostly because they couldn't argue with success. The other ranchers saw our productivity, saw that I gave orders and Jacob followed them just as often as the reverse, saw that we were equals. Mrs. Patterson had even nodded to me at church last week. Grudging. Small, but a nod nonetheless. "Think you'll ever marry me?" Jacob asked. Casual, like he was asking about the weather. I paused, hands in the earth. "Maybe," I said, "when I'm sure I'm choosing you, not just choosing not to be alone." Fair enough. And that was it. No pressure, no wounded pride, just acceptance. That's how I knew. Not because he asked, because he accepted my answer. I looked at my hands, still work-worn, still calloused, still cracked in places that would probably never smooth out. But they were planting something new, something that was mine, ours. No lies, no performance, no pretending, just growth. Real, honest growth. "Jacob," I said. "Yeah, thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "You were always there to see. Margaret, you just needed someone willing to look." We worked in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that doesn't need filling, the kind that exists between two people who understand each other. Spring turned the prairie green, slowly, beautifully, and I thought about Monday, about burying my husband, about Tuesday at the land office, about learning what partnership could actually mean. I buried my husband on Monday. Tuesday, I learned what it meant to be seen. Spring came later to the land, to me. But when it came real. I didn't marry another man. I chose one. The difference sounds small. Feels like everything. The end.